The outpost gates loomed like the teeth of some slumbering beast, jagged walls of alloy designed to intimidate every traveler approaching from the dust-blown horizon. Spotlights carved through the hazy air, locking on each approaching speck as scanners whispered along the road. It was the most fortified checkpoint on this rimward sector of the Galactic Empire. Ships hummed overhead like vultures in lazy circles. To pass through meant to kneel before authority. Most beings did so without hesitation. And then came the human woman. She was not armored. She was not armed. She carried a canvas tote slung from one shoulder, scuffed at the edges, decorated with faded stitching of flowers long out of fashion. Her stride was calm, measured, each step unhurried, as though the Empire's bristling defenses were little more than grocery clerks on a slow Tuesday afternoon. She wore a plain jacket, charcoal in color, sleeves rolled neatly to the elbow. The sentries who first glimpsed her muttered among themselves, amusement curling in their mandibles and jaws. A lone human woman walking straight into the maw of the Empire, either insane or suicidal. At the center of the gate's platform, General Xyrix stood. His armor gleamed beneath the lights, every plate etched with the sigils of conquered worlds. A tall figure with ridged carapace and deep-set eyes that glowed faintly blue, he embodied the Empire's pride. To his soldiers, he was fear wrapped in ceremony. To outsiders, he was the wall that never fell. His clawed hands rested on the hilt of his ceremonial blade, though his true weapons were the ranks of drones and cannons that flanked him. Stop. His voice thundered across the platform, projected through amplifiers. The woman halted precisely where his command fell, neither startled nor defiant. Her gaze lifted, steady, polite. "Good evening," she said. Her tone was clear, cultured, touched with the faintest lilt of amusement. She might have been greeting a doorman in Manhattan, not the commander of a garrison that had raised half a dozen star systems. Lovely weather for a walk, don't you think? The sentries shifted, exchanging bewildered looks. Few dared speak casually in the general's presence. Even fewer did so while surrounded by enough firepower to disintegrate a city. Xyrix narrowed his gaze, studying her as one might study an oddly shaped insect before crushing it. "Identify yourself." She tilted her head, as though considering how to phrase the answer. "Oh, just passing through. Thought I'd see the sights." Her eyes flicked toward the looming walls, the banners snapping in the wind. "You do love your dramatic architecture. Very pointy." One of the reptilian guards hissed, choking back laughter. Another smacked him silent. Xyrix's mandibles twitched. "This is a restricted outpost of the Galactic Empire. No civilian may pass without clearance. State your designation." Designation. She rolled the word on her tongue as if it were an exotic dessert. Then she smiled. "You can call me Evelyn. Most people do." No data appeared on the scanners. The name meant nothing in their archives. The machine spirit whined in confusion, spitting static. The general's aide scrambled to recalibrate, tapping at screens with rising panic. Xyrix stepped forward, claws clacking against the metal floor. "You attempt to mask your identity. Our systems do not fail. Who sent you?" Evelyn regarded him as one might regard an overeager waiter. "Mask my identity? General, your machines are just shy. Maybe they've never met a woman before." She adjusted her tote, the motion casual, practiced. "I assure you, I'm quite real." "Enough," Xyrix snapped. His soldiers straightened, weapons gleaming as they locked onto her form. "You will submit to inspection." Her eyebrows arched. "Inspection? My, that does sound invasive." Her gaze traveled along the weapons, pausing on a particularly large plasma repeater. "You know, I've seen smaller cannons outside football stadiums. Overcompensation, perhaps." A ripple of confusion passed through the soldiers. "Football," one insectoid whispered. "What is football?" Another shrugged, antennas twitching. Xyrix ignored them, though a faint growl rose in his chest. "Do not test my patience." Patience. Evelyn let the word hang. "Well, then, we already have something in common. I'm being very patient myself." She smiled sweetly, eyes glinting with a sharpness that didn't belong on a fragile civilian face. "You see, I'm waiting." "For what?" The general's voice cut the air. "For my husband." Her answer was breezy, as though she had said she was waiting for a bus. She brushed a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "He was supposed to meet me here. He can be dreadfully late sometimes." That drew genuine laughter from the ranks. The reptilian soldier bent double, wheezing. "Her husband," he barked. "She waits for her mail while standing at the Empire's teeth. Perhaps he is invisible. Perhaps he is smaller than her tote bag." But one voice, lower, steadier, spoke from the shadows of the command platform. A grizzled officer, scales dulled with age, leaned on his staff and whispered toward the general. "Sir, I advise caution. I have heard stories. When a human speaks so calmly at the gates of power, danger follows." Zyric sneered, mandibles curling. "Old tales for hatchlings. I do not bend to superstition." He stepped closer to Evelyn, towering above her, shadow engulfing her form. "You will not pass this gate. Your husband, if he exists, is irrelevant. You stand alone." "Alone." Evelyn's eyes lifted, unblinking. "Oh, General, I've never been less alone in my life." She folded her hands primly before her, as though she were about to attend afternoon tea. "And as for passing the gate, I suspect you'll find it's not really your decision at all." A flicker of unease ran through the crowd. The scanners blipped again, static screaming before shutting down entirely. Consoles dimmed, lights flickered. The air hummed with a strange resonance. The general's second barked orders, trying to restore systems. Evelyn only hummed softly, a simple melody, sweet and steady. The sound was strangely loud against the sudden silence of failing machines. "What is that noise?" Zyrex demanded. "A lullaby," she replied, voice soft but carrying. "My grandmother used to sing it when storms rattled the windows. Funny how the universe always finds ways to remind me of home." "Home." The general scoffed. "Earth is dust. You have no home." Her smile didn't falter. "That's the thing about humans. We carry home with us, even when we step into teeth like yours." The younger soldiers shifted uneasily. Their general was unshaken, or at least pretended to be. He leaned down until his face was inches from hers, his breath hot and acrid. "I will give you one last chance. Kneel, surrender, and perhaps I will let you live long enough to watch your planet burn." Evelyn's expression softened, almost pitying. "General, you misunderstand. I'm not here to save Earth from you. I'm here to save you from my husband's temper." He barked sharp laughter, echoing off the walls. "Your threats are meaningless. You think to frighten me with a phantom mate." She looked up into his eyes, unflinching, and spoke with a calmness that made the hairs rise on every neck present. "Not phantom, just punctuality challenged." The words meant little to them, but the way she said them, the weight behind them, silenced even the laughter. The general straightened, claw resting on his blade. "We will see how long your humor lasts under interrogation." "Humor." Evelyn's lips curved. "Oh no, General. That was a promise." The last of the lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. The scanners rebooted, but the data remained blank, as though she were a ghost. The aide shook his head furiously. "No record, sir. No genetic imprint, no trace at all. It's impossible." Zyric snarled, turning on Evelyn. "Who are you?" Her tote slid from her shoulder, settling on the floor with a soft thud. She straightened, eyes narrowing just slightly, voice dropping into a tone that chilled the air. "I told you, I'm Evelyn, and I'm waiting for my husband." A silence, heavy and taut, stretched across the platform. Soldiers gripped their weapons. Drones hovered closer, barrels whirring. The general's gaze burned, but beneath the fury, a flicker of uncertainty shone. Something in her composure, something in the way the very machines faltered around her, gnawed at the certainty he wore like armor. And then Evelyn tilted her head, listening to some sound no one else could hear. A slow smile spread across her face. "Ah, there it is." "What?" the general demanded. She looked back at him, eyes bright as though stars themselves burned behind them. Her words were soft, but they cut through every layer of noise and fear. "He's here." The silence that followed Evelyn's last words pressed against the metal bones of the outpost, like a storm swelling behind glass. The soldiers did not breathe. Even the drones hung motionless in the air, their targeting sensors uncertain. General Xyrix's claws flexed against the hilt of his blade, scraping sparks from the alloy. His pride demanded laughter, dismissal, but some colder instinct at the root of his spine whispered caution. "You speak riddles," he growled, his voice amplified across the platform. "There is no one here but you." Evelyn smiled faintly, as though indulging a child who insisted monsters did not exist under the bed. "Oh, but he doesn't walk through gates. He tends to arrive less conventionally." The scanners shrieked suddenly, red light bathing the crowd. Dozens of signatures flickered, then vanished. Systems cascaded into errors. Officers shouted over each other, fumbling with controls. Evelyn reached into her tote bag, producing not a weapon, but a folded paper fan, which she snapped open and used to stir the warm air with a languid flick of her wrist. "Empire engineering," she mused. "Always impressive in the brochure. But one tiny hiccup and poof, down it goes. Like a teenager's first car." The younger reptilian soldier dared a laugh, quickly silenced by a backhand from his superior. The general roared orders, demanding backup diagnostics. He wanted certainty, a framework of control. But control was slipping. Xyrix leaned close, lowering his voice so only she could hear, though the menace carried. "Who is he?" "Depends who you ask," Evelyn said lightly. "Some call him a strategist. Some call him a butcher. I just call him late for dinner." She flicked her fan closed with a snap, eyes meeting his. "And you've made me wait long enough." The general straightened sharply, fury blazing. "Detain her." Soldiers surged forward, weapons raised. Evelyn did not flinch. She merely sighed, as if tired of waiting in line at the post office. Then, as hands reached for her arms, the ground trembled. It was not the clumsy quake of faulty machinery. This was deeper, resonant, as though the bones of the planet itself had stirred. Dust sifted from the walls. One by one, drones crashed to the ground, their lights extinguished. The sky darkened not with clouds, but with shapes, long shadows sliding out from cloaked silence. Every eye tilted upward. There, descending with predatory grace, were ships. Not empire models with sharp wings and banners of conquest, but vessels smooth, dark, and utterly quiet. They had been invisible until the moment they chose not to be. Panic rippled across the outpost. Orders barked, sirens screamed. The general's soldiers scrambled into defensive positions. But the formations above were flawless, unhurried, as though they already knew the outcome. Evelyn adjusted her jacket sleeve. "You might want to mind your tone, General. He hates when people raise their voice at me." The general bared his mandibles in fury, though his chest tightened with something dangerously close to fear. He snapped his blade free, pointing it at her throat. "You dare bring an enemy fleet to my gates?" Her gaze flicked to the blade, then back to his eyes, unimpressed. "Enemy? Oh no. He's very fond of you. Talks about you all the time. Says you make a marvelous decoy." Confusion rattled the soldiers. "Decoy," one stammered. "What does she mean?" Evelyn folded her fan neatly and slipped it back into her tote, then clasped her hands behind her back as though giving a lecture. "You see, General, the Empire prides itself on discipline, hierarchy, and, what's the word, pomp. All that ceremony makes you predictable. So predictable that when someone wanted to bait the largest hammer in the sector, they knew exactly where to place the nail." Xyrix's eyes narrowed. "You think I am bait?" "I don't think it," Evelyn corrected, her voice silk over steel. "I know it. And you swallowed the hook beautifully." The sky rumbled. Human ships shifted, wings adjusting, targeting arrays glowing faintly red. The Empire's own cannons whirred to life, swiveling upward. Soldiers barked coordinates, firing sequences. Energy bolts lanced skyward, but never struck home. The shots fizzled, disrupted midair, falling harmlessly into the dust. "Interference field," shouted one officer, panic cracking his voice. "They've blinded the grid." Evelyn's smile curved. "He does love his toys." The general roared over the chaos, his voice brittle with rage. "Enough of this. If you believe your husband frightens me, you are mistaken. I have crushed rebellions, burned worlds, broken fleets with a gesture." "And yet," Evelyn said softly, stepping closer until only inches separated them, "you still cannot make me afraid." The words landed heavier than cannon fire. For the first time in memory, silence fell not from command, but from awe. Soldiers stared at her, at the fragile human who stood beneath the shadow of their strongest general, and declared herself unshaken. The air itself seemed to pause. Then a voice crackled across the comms, low and calm, carrying an edge that sliced through every ear. "Evelyn, did he make you wait again?" Her face softened, almost tender. She looked upward, speaking into the air. "Only a little, darling. I managed." The general's mandibles clamped tight. The voice was not alien. It was human, male, resonant, unhurried, with a cadence of command wrapped in polite amusement. Across the platform, the oldest officer dropped his staff, scales paling. "The boogeyman," he whispered, almost reverent. Murmurs spread like wildfire. A myth. A ghost. Impossible. Yet the name had lived in hushed corners of barracks for decades. Whispers of a human tactician who never lost, who turned wars into theater and empires into tombs. Most had dismissed it as propaganda, stories told to frighten hatchlings. But the voice was real. The comm crackled again. "General Zyrex, I presume? Forgive my wife's inconvenience. We'll be taking her now." "Taking her?" Zyrex roared. "You stand over my gates like carrion, and you think I will yield?" "Yield." The voice chuckled warmly. "Oh no, I'd never ask that. I'd simply rearrange your defenses into something less obstructive." Every Empire weapon swiveled upward again, but the humans were already ahead. Invisible lines of precision hummed through the air. Empire cannons glowed, then died, systems fried in perfect unison. The soldiers gasped as entire sections of their defenses winked out like candles. Evelyn tilted her head, as if assessing a dinner menu. "You might want to lower your sword, General. He's getting twitchy." The blade wavered, not from lack of will, but from the creeping understanding that this was no longer his stage. He forced himself to steady, pride anchoring him. "You are 2 against thousands. You cannot win." "Thousands." Evelyn's laughter was soft, almost pitying. "Oh, General, you've counted bodies. We count moves." A fresh tremor rippled through the ground. Beneath the outpost, concealed hatches split open. Sleek human drop pods rose from the sand like seeds bursting through soil. They had been buried there long before today. Soldiers spun, weapons raised, but too late, pods hissed open, and human operatives stepped out, armored and calm, rifles held as if they were extensions of their hands. The trap was not simply in orbit. It was here, woven beneath the general's very feet. He realized, with a jolt that stabbed deeper than any blade, that the woman had been the distraction all along. Every smile, every quip, every patient breath had been a string pulling tighter around his throat. "Seize them," he bellowed, desperation leaking into the order. His soldiers obeyed, but confusion choked their speed. The humans moved with terrifying efficiency. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Each operative advanced with silent grace, cutting through resistance, as though rehearsed 1,000 times. Their faces were unreadable behind visors, yet their movements sang the same truth. They had already won. Evelyn stepped back, watching the chaos unfold like a spectator at a ballet. She leaned slightly toward the general, voice soft as silk. "You thought you stopped me at a gate. What you really did, General, was hold the door open." His breath rattled, fury and dawning terror colliding in his chest. He swung his blade, desperate for some show of power. But Evelyn's gaze alone froze him. Not because she held a weapon, but because she didn't need one. She was the weapon, the spark that had lit an empire's trap. The comm crackled once more. Her husband's voice, smooth as velvet, delivered the words that sealed the moment. "Evelyn, my dear, would you kindly step aside? It's time we began." She moved gracefully, her tote in hand, as though leaving a cafe. Soldiers screamed, weapons fired, alarms blared, but all of it felt muted compared to the weight of that calm, human voice. General Xyrix roared his defiance to the stars, but deep inside, in the quiet place he never admitted even to himself, he knew the outpost was already lost. And as the sky thundered with descending fire, Evelyn's smile sharpened. "I told you he was here." The storm broke without thunder. It came instead in silence, like the pause between breaths before the plunge. The human operatives fanned out across the outpost, their boots whispering against the alloy floor. Each step carried the weight of 100 rehearsals. No shouts, no wasted signals, only hand motions sharp as blades, rifles that hummed with restrained energy, and eyes hidden behind visors that reflected the panic of those they advanced upon. Evelyn stood calm at the center, untouched as if the chaos parted for her. A gust of wind caught her hair, and she tucked it back with unhurried grace, as though adjusting before dinner rather than amid a firefight. The tote still hung from her arm, absurdly ordinary against the ballet of precision around her. General Xyrix barked orders that cracked like whips, but his soldiers faltered. They had numbers, size, and brute force. Yet each time they surged, the humans melted aside, reshaping lines, flowing like water. Blades clashed, rifles blazed, and still the humans did not rush. They dismantled. They cut threads with surgical patience. And all the while, Evelyn's husband spoke from the comms, his voice a steady undertone guiding the storm. "Left flank, 2 meters. Watch the ridge. Drop pod 5, sync with 6. They are about to panic. Hold fire on the gate. Let them think it works a little longer." He never raised his voice. He never hurried. And each command fit into the next like notes of a symphony only he could hear. The Empire had always prided itself on discipline. But this was art. The general tried to anchor himself in fury. His blade lashed at one operative, sparks flying as metal-kissed armor. The human twisted, parried, and slid past, leaving Xyrix's swing cutting nothing but air. His soldiers shouted, but the words tangled in fear. They had never fought enemies who smiled through the smoke. Above, the sky split as a human vessel descended lower. It was not the massive dreadnoughts of the Empire, bristling with banners and fire. It was lean, matte black, almost shy in silhouette. Yet when its cannons whispered alive, the ground itself trembled. One beam arced outward not to destroy, but to sever the Empire's calm array in a single surgical strike. The tower collapsed like a broken tooth, sparks scattering into the wind. Evelyn's voice carried across the chaos, light but clear. "Darling, you missed a spot." Her husband's chuckle rolled over the comm, a sound too warm for the havoc it commanded. "I was saving it for you." And then he arrived. From the belly of the descending vessel, a figure dropped. No jetpack flare, no dramatic announcement. He simply fell, armor catching the light as he landed with a thud that cracked the alloy beneath his boots. The dust settled around him, and he rose with the ease of one who had done this too many times to count. His armor bore no crest, no mark of rank, only black plates smoothed with wear. His helmet visor retracted, revealing a face almost ordinary. Brown hair, streaked faintly silver at the temples. Eyes calm, blue as still water. The soldiers froze. They had expected a monster, a demon, something alien in its terror. Instead, they saw a man who might have walked unnoticed in any crowd. And that was worse, because legends, at least, could be exaggerated. But ordinariness made the whispers true. Evelyn smiled as he strode toward her, blade in hand that glowed faintly with contained energy. "You took your time." "I like to make an entrance," he replied, his tone soft but threaded with steel. His gaze slid to the general, measured and cool. "General Xyrix, I presume?" Xyrix lifted his blade, mandibles wide. "You are the ghost they whisper of. The Phantom Butcher." "Phantom." The man tilted his head. "I'm standing right here. But Butcher, now that's unkind. I prefer Problem Solver." He glanced at his wife. "Though you'd call me something else when I leave socks on the floor." Her laugh, light and genuine, rang through the smoke. Soldiers stared at her as if the sound itself were a weapon. In a way, it was. Humans laughed in the face of annihilation. The general swung his blade high, a roar tearing from his chest. His blow carved a furrow through the platform, sparks showering. The human sidestepped, calm as though avoiding a puddle on the street, then tapped his blade against Xyrix's in a faint clash. The sound was small, almost mocking. "Nice swing," he said politely. "Reminds me of my golf days. Problem is, you're aiming for the wrong hole." The aliens blinked, confused at the word. But Xyrix understood the insult's weight, and fury blackened his features. He attacked again, faster, harder, each strike punctuated by snarls. The human met him with ease, each parry clean, each dodge minimal. He never struck to kill, only to humiliate. He turned the duel into a lesson, each move saying, "You cannot touch me." Around them, the operatives tightened their grip. The outpost defenses crumbled piece by piece. Each time the Empire tried to regroup, the humans were already there, cutting the cord before it tied. Drones lay shattered, turrets silent. Even the sky seemed bent to their rhythm. The general staggered back, chest heaving. His soldiers watched, horror dawning in their eyes. Their invincible commander, the one who had raised worlds, was panting against a single human's polite smile. "You are nothing," Xyrix spat, trying to smother his fear and rage. "Your species crawled from mud while we conquered stars. You are soft flesh wrapped in arrogance." The human lowered his blade, letting it dangle casually at his side. His eyes fixed on the general unblinking, and when he spoke, his voice was quiet enough to force every ear to strain. "You're right. We are soft. We bleed easy. We break bones tripping over furniture. But do you know what we do better than anyone else, General?" The silence swallowed the battlefield. Even Evelyn tilted her head, waiting, though she already knew the answer. "We plan." His voice was steel now, sharp and final. "We plan while you posture. We smile while you underestimate. And by the time you notice, you're already standing in the trap we laid months ago." As if on cue, the ground beyond the gate erupted. Sand split open, revealing rows of buried charges that lit the horizon with controlled fire. Empire reinforcements, racing to the outpost's aid, were obliterated before they even breached the perimeter. The sky burned orange, a curtain sealing the world. The general staggered back. Impossible. No species would dare. The human smile turned razor thin. "That's what you all say. Right before the end." Panic consumed the ranks. Soldiers dropped weapons, backing away. The operatives pressed forward without rushing, hurting them, forcing them to understand that resistance was no longer war, but suicide. The legend had become flesh, and flesh was worse than myth. Flesh bled, yes, but it bled while smiling. Evelyn stepped beside her husband, sliding her hand into his with the ease of long practice. "You always know how to clear a room." "Just doing my best for you," he replied, eyes never leaving the general. The commander's mandibles clicked, hatred and fear twisting. "You cannot hold this sector. The Empire will answer with fire. They will bring fleets 1,000 times stronger." The human squeezed Evelyn's hand once, then released it and stepped forward. His blade angled low, voice calm. "That's the idea." Xyrix blinked. "The idea? You think this outpost is a prize," the human said, tone shifting from humor to iron. "But it's just a lure. Every ship they send here, every soldier they pour into this pit, it means fewer elsewhere. We don't win wars by being stronger. We win them by choosing where you bleed." Realization dawned across alien faces. Horror followed. This had never been about one gate, one woman, one duel. It was a net cast wide, and they had flown straight into it. The general raised his blade one final time, desperate for dignity. The human met it with a flick, twisted, and the weapon clattered to the ground. Xyrix fell to his knees, breath ragged, pride fractured. The human leaned close, voice a whisper that carried like thunder. "Your empire isn't falling tomorrow. It's falling today. And it started the moment you stopped my wife." Evelyn smiled gently at the stunned soldiers, as if offering condolences at a funeral. "Now, who'd like to walk me through the rest of the gate?" The outpost lay broken, but above, the Empire's banners still fluttered stubbornly in the wind. Ships shifted on the horizon. Reinforcements were coming, drawn like moths to the flame. And as the human commander looked toward the sky, his voice dropped into a murmur that carried across every channel. "Perfect. Time for the real show." The air reeked of ozone and scorched alloy. Smoke curled from the shattered turrets, drifting across the platform in ribbons that caught the red glare of fires burning along the horizon. The outpost, once the Empire's proud sentinel, now lay in ruin. Drones sputtered in broken heaps. Soldiers huddled in the shadows of their own walls, and General Xyrix knelt in the dust, his blade gone, his breath ragged. Yet above them, banners of the Empire still clung to their poles, flapping defiantly in the wind, as if fabric alone could preserve the illusion of dominance. The human commander stepped forward, his armor whispering with each deliberate motion. He did not hurry. He never needed to. Each stride was measured, steady, carrying inevitability in its rhythm. Evelyn followed half a step behind, her tote once again dangling casually from her shoulder. To the alien soldiers, the sight was surreal. The woman looked more like a schoolteacher after class than a figure standing at the heart of an annihilation. "You've made your point," Xyrix rasped, his voice stripped raw. "You've broken one outpost. Nothing more. The Empire is vast. It will crush you as it has crushed every other." The human tilted his head, eyes unreadable. "Vast," he repeated softly, as though tasting the word. He glanced at Evelyn, who lifted one brow, silently granting him permission to play with his prey. His gaze shifted back to the general. "You think size is strength, but vastness is weakness. It stretches you thin. Every mile of territory becomes another mile of vulnerability." The general's mandibles clicked, trying to smother the seed of doubt. "We will summon fleets. We will. You already did." The commander's smile cut like a scalpel. That was the plan. Confusion rippled through the ranks. Evelyn folded her arms, her voice slipping into the air like silk. "While you were busy guarding this gate, while you were polishing your armor and posturing for your soldiers, every fleet you pulled here left something else unguarded. Supply chains, command nodes, worlds you thought secure." She tilted her head. "We don't need to burn every world you hold, General. We only need to cut the right threads and watch the tapestry unravel." As if to punctuate her words, the horizon shuddered. In the distance, where reinforcements had been rushing toward the outpost, plumes of light blossomed, controlled detonations, precise and final. The Empire's reserves were not arriving. They were being dismantled piece by hands that had been preparing long before Evelyn ever set foot at the gate. The operatives tightened their perimeter. Their movements remained calm, even casual, but the Empire soldiers could feel the cage closing. No path forward, no path back. Every escape had already been erased. Xyrix swallowed against the dryness in his throat. "And what choice do I have now?" The human rose slowly, standing tall over him. "Live. Watch. Carry the story back to your masters." His blade hummed as it retracted, sliding back into its sheath. "Tell them humanity has arrived, and we're done being underestimated." The silence that followed was heavy, but it was not empty. It carried realization. It carried fear. The soldiers of the Empire, once so certain of their supremacy, now saw the truth writ clear. The humans had not simply defeated them. They had rewritten the very rules of war. Above, the banners snapped in the wind. Evelyn's gaze lingered on them. She slipped her hand into her husband's, her voice soft but firm. "I think it's time they came down." Xyrix's chest heaved. "You are parasites. Cowards hiding behind tricks. Face us in open war, and we will see who stands." The human commander crouched, lowering himself until he and the general's eyes met level. His tone dropped to a whisper, intimate and merciless. "We don't do open war, General. We do inevitable war. The kind you don't see until it's already inside your walls. He let the words hang, then added softly, "That's the final lesson. Humans don't fight fair. We fight to win." The general tried to hold his gaze, but the weight of it was unbearable. Pride cracked under the strain. His claws dug furrows into the dust. Around him, his soldiers shifted, no longer looking to him for strength. They looked to the humans, their silence, their composure, their terrifying lack of hesitation. Evelyn crouched as well, her knees folding gracefully, her tote settling at her side. She reached out and brushed a speck of ash from the general's armor with a motion so gentle it was almost tender. "You stopped me at your gate as though you were in control. But you were never in control. You were an actor on a stage we built." Her eyes softened, but her voice cut. "The only choice you had was whether to recognize it." He nodded. Without raising his voice, he spoke into the calm, "Bring them down." A single shot rang out, clean and precise. The topmost banner pole snapped, cloth tumbling into the dust. Another followed, then another, until every symbol of the empire lay in the dirt. No cheers followed, no human exultation. Only silence, as though the banners had been mourning themselves. The soldiers of the empire stared at the fallen flags, then at Evelyn, then at the man they called the boogeyman. Their weapons sagged in their hands. Some dropped them entirely. The general choked on words he couldn't shape. "You think this moment ends us?" No, the human's eyes narrowed. "This moment begins you. Begins your fear. Every commander, every soldier, every bureaucrat in your vast empire will hear of this. And they'll wonder where we'll strike next. They'll wonder if the ground under their feet has already been seeded with our traps." His voice sharpened, almost gentle. "That wondering will eat you alive." Evelyn squeezed his hand once, then turned her eyes on the soldiers still frozen in place. "You've seen it. You've felt it. So when they tell you humans are weak, remember tonight. Remember that we smiled while we dismantled you. Remember that we let you live only so you could carry the story." One of the younger soldiers dropped to his knees, his weapon clattering against the alloy. Another followed, mandibles trembling. The old officer who had warned of superstition bowed his head low, whispering words in a language the humans didn't bother to translate. Reverence. Fear. Both tasted the same. The human commander raised his chin, scanning the sky, where the next wave of Empire reinforcements would soon appear. His comm crackled with reports from other operatives. Convoys intercepted, network severed, command chains cut. Every line of the Empire's defense unraveling exactly as planned. Evelyn adjusted the strap of her tote. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. "Darling, I believe that's checkmate." "Not quite yet." He smiled faintly, eyes never leaving the horizon. "This is only the opening." The platform shook again. This time it wasn't detonations. It was engines, the sound of 100 more human vessels uncloaking above the battlefield. They stretched across the sky like a curtain of shadows, silent, poised, each one a blade aimed at the Empire's heart. Gasps broke from the alien ranks. Some turned to flee, but there was nowhere left to run. The sky was theirs, the ground was theirs, even the air they breathed had been claimed by human design. General Xyrix lifted his head, staring at the fleet blotting out the stars. His mandibles trembled as words scraped from his throat. "You mean to destroy us all?" The human's gaze finally returned to him. "No, General. We mean to teach you. And your lesson begins now." The sky lit with human firepower, not wild destruction, but precision strikes that carved the Empire's remaining structures to dust while leaving the soldiers alive to witness. The message was not conquest. It was revelation. As the last tower fell, Evelyn leaned close to the general, her breath warm against his ear. Tell them who stopped to him at the gate." The human raised his blade one last time, not to kill, but to point at the horizon, where the Empire's reinforcements now hesitated at the edge of space, unwilling to cross the line. His voice carried like judgment carved into stone. "Humanity is here." The words rang out, echoing over ruins, over fallen banners, over soldiers whose fear had already hollowed them. And when silence returned, it was not the silence of victory, nor of defeat. It was the silence of inevitability, of a future reshaped by one lesson too terrible to ignore. The general bowed his head at last, not in respect, but in surrender to the truth he could no longer deny. And as Evelyn took her husband's hand, the banners of the empire smoldering at their feet, the first stars of dawn pierced the smoke-stained sky. The fleet above shifted, preparing for the next move, the next trap, the next inevitable strike. Humanity was not done. Humanity was only beginning. And with the calm finality of a closing door, the human commander whispered words that froze every soul who heard them. "This was never about you, General. You were just the first.